Welcome to the very first episode of the Barely Maintaining Podcast with your host, Ryan Burheit and Michael Data Guyton. All the latest news, commentary, and our personal reactions to the one and only Chicago Bears. Of course, we'll touch on other Chicago sports and all around the NFL. So, to find out what you've been missing, tune in every week to Barely Maintaining.
All right, everybody. I'm Ryan Burheit, 28-year-old father of two. I'm originally from Cedar Rapids, transplanted into the Quad Cities as of 6 years now. Been a Bears fan all my life, through my family specifically, my dad and my grandpa. I grew up with the memories of Hester and Urlacher and the chase for some sort of quarterback to fill out a team. That pretty much rounds out who I am.
And I am Michael Data Guyton, nickname from high school days because of the movie Goonies, and I'm a 44-year-old girl dad from the Quad Cities. I just had my first child about 10 months ago, so I'm making Bears fans. I've been a Bears fan specifically because of my first memories of the NFL are of the 85 Bears team. Being 5 years old, sitting in front of the TV, not even knowing what football is, and seeing the fridge run in, and just the Super Bowl shuffle, sweetness, and all the kind of hype that came with that team. And I've been chasing that feeling ever since. And even really, that team didn't even have a quarterback. Just had a bunch of rough and tumble guys that wanted to win. So that's who we are, and we look forward to bringing you our commentary every week on the team that's kept our interest for so long.
Hopefully found our quarterback.
Yeah. We'll definitely find out, I think. Looking forward to that. So, on this week's episode, what we'll be talking about, we'll have some upcoming events in the Bears universe, of course. We're going to mention our Mount Rushmore, so you kind of give an idea who we are and who we love as Bears players, our Mount Rushmore Bears players. 24 season expectations, and a dark horse player of the year who we think is going to stand out this year. We'll mention a Bears player you forgot about, the players we are most excited to see about a training camp because we're going actually to visit, and then our favorite college teams, so you know who we're rooting for on Saturdays. With that being said, our sponsors today are brought to you by me and Ryan. Out of our personal pockets, we'd love to say your company's name or offer discount codes for your product in the spot in the future. So get it in while it's cheap, because it's only getting better from here.
Yeah. So upcoming events, we've got Bears will be in Hard Knocks, the preseason, which will be pretty fun. We got training camp coming up, and then we will also be visiting training camp. I think the second week it's available for fans, I think is what it was. That'll be a great time. Speaking of Hard Knocks, though, have you been watching?
I was just going to ask you, have you been watching those episodes? I have watched 2 of the episodes, and I get mixed feelings about the New York team, man. I just don't feel like the GM. I don't have confidence in the GM. It really feels like I felt with Ryan Pace.
Yeah, so I got maybe 10 minutes into the third episode. It starts to seem like he somewhat knows what he's doing.
That's good.
But even then, it's more the coach, I think, pushing everything instead of the GM. Yeah. It doesn't seem...
Yeah.
It seems like, obviously, he wants to build that team for him, but at the same time, it seems like he's the one pushing everything instead of... Because even they were like... I think it's the owner that comes in and is like, hey... So what's going on with the Saquon stuff? Well, we still don't really know.
Oh yeah, that was our president Mora.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, that's why. Honestly, Brian Daboll, who came from the Buffalo, knows what he's doing. I feel like that guy's the football guy in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the contrast of that franchise versus ours. A big city franchise, a lot to live up to. Kind of been searching for the quarterback.
Seems crazy too, because they're looking for opposite things. Like, they didn't seem to like Odunze, like at all. It didn't seem like the coach liked him
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. Um,
because he seemed to. They definitely like Neighbors and the
yeah,
attitude he had, which was the more dominating type of. But they are looking for a receiver one, and we're not necessarily looking for
that's true.
a receiver one. We're looking for a guy we can build up instead of
But it
coming
did
right in.
feel like they were looking for less of a team guy and more of a like a
Yeah,
poster guy.
yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
for sure. But they're kind of been trying to fill that Odell Beckham void since he left. Really, to me,
yeah,
I don't feel like they've had
yeah.
that guy. You know?
I think they're also looking for somebody to, because they come right out and say he's like Barkley's their number one guy, it's like favorite player by all the fans. So I think in the back of their minds too, they're secretly looking for another fan favorite type of guy too, where
Yeah,
because the world went from Odell to Barkley to now who's next guy, because obviously we know the future because this is past where
right,
Barkley's gone, so they had to find somebody.
right. And they were kind of like at the first episodes banking on Xavier McKinney, and
Hmm.
he's gone. You know, it's like so they, yeah, they kind of had to pivot real quick.
Yeah, yeah. And now they're looking at that. They were looking at the Burns guy. Forget his first name from the Panthers.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know what
And
his
yeah,
first name is either. But I feel like that those that it made me more confident in our in the Bears franchise because they were definitely like
yeah, for sure.
um,
Because Poles
they're kind
seems
of
to
flying by
have
the
it.
seat of their pants. You know, it feels like it did when Pace came in. You know,
Yeah,
he made some big
yeah,
moves and stuff, and you know, but yeah.
yeah.
So let's go to the next segment, which is our Mount Rushmore of Bears players. Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't. I put my own kind of criteria on it for myself. Like I told you before, I kind of went with people that were in the Hall of Fame only because I felt like that was one of my prerequisites. But honestly, there's so many players that just helped me narrow it down.
Yeah,
Because
really, that
there's,
was
I could go
really the
from
only
I could go
thing.
year to year Mount Rushmores, but I kind of just went franchise history. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of one thing I had to kind of hold above because I really so preview. I really want to put Tillman on it,
Yeah.
but it's like, well, he till he really hits the because every time I think of the Bears too, I kind of think of Tillman with the peanut punch and
Well,
stuff
and
like that, and
he's
that whole
on
Bears
my
defense. But
personal, probably my personal Mount Rushmore of players that I loved, you know, and I love
yeah,
guys like Tillman, the Lance Briggs, the guys that were like not the poster guys, but did all the work. You know what I mean? To me,
hmm
anyway. Um, Not that the other guys weren't doing work, but you know,
they
that
were
was
doing
cool.
work kind of behind
Yeah,
the
but
scenes
again,
too.
because I love the team, there are so many players, and that makes made it real hard.
Hmm.
So for me, my first one, I'm going from number 4 down to number 1, and
Okay.
my number 4 is George Hallis. Obvious reasons for that one, but he could be on the Mount Rushmore of founders of the NFL. You know, one of the things I think that's interesting is he fought in World War One and World War Two. Most people don't know that. So he was a veteran,
Oh
and
yeah,
while he owned a football team, fought in a war, and then came back and yeah, and then won some more championships. So I think that was so he could literally be on the Mount Rushmore of America, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
plus the NFL and of course the Bears. So that's why he's my number 4. I did a little deep
yeah,
dive on him, and so it was cool reading, yeah, they were built different in that time period.
yeah, for sure. So I went more with my four. I went more recent. I
Yeah,
put Devin Hester as my number 4.
yeah,
Uh, Special teams game changer, Hall of Famer. Uh, Made people excited about part of the game that really up until maybe this year we'll be excited about again, but there's a long void for special teams to be even fun.
right.
Um, and he scored one of only the 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl that I've been alive for. So
Yeah, yeah. The funny thing is, he was on my list, and at first, and as I kind of like nitpicked it, I took him off only because the number of years played. But he changed the whole NFL game, so
yeah,
he was definitely in consideration for me. My number 3 was Mike Ditka. because not because of playing so much and coaching. Obviously, he coached 85 Bears, but just kind of if you go to any Bears game, you see somebody's dressed like him. That sweater vest he had is still iconic. So just him as a Bears icon. If you put his face up there, kind of people might ask who the old man is, and you have to explain who House is, but everyone will know who Mike Dick is. Especially with the aviator
Mhm.
wings and all that. So yeah, and he obviously gave us our Super Bowl berth, the only one in my lifetime. So
Yeah.
Super Bowl win. So yeah, that's my number three.
My number three is Dick Butkus. Uh, one of the hardest hitting linebackers of all time.
Yeah,
Uh, I think I mean, whether it be the funny name that he has or whatever, but always comes to mind when like you think of Bears all time players. Just kind of that gritty, you know,
yeah.
old
I
school
think he's kind of like the
linebacker that,
personality that the Bears are. He kind of
yeah,
yeah, definitely embodied that for sure. And I think he's another one kind of like Ditka. Like if he was up there, you're kind of like everyone knows who Butkus is. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
uh, yeah. So totally agree there. Yeah, again, why it makes it so hard because even like I mean he's a historical bear, out
hmm
of before our time, but really I mean we all know and have seen all the old footage. Number
yeah,
two for me was Brian Urlacher. I tried to put a Hester in the spot, but then I went back and looked at the numbers, and it was like, geez, Urlacher just his career just from start to finish um, was amazing, and I mean he was at one point I remember watching an interview. He said that defense only ran like 3 plays. They just ran them really good. So
yeah,
I just love that kind of stuff, And he dated Paris Hilton, who at the time uh, was the hot ticket.
yeah. The craziest thing that always comes to my mind about Urlacher is the fact that he was a safety in New Mexico.
Yeah, that's
That
scary,
is,
actually.
yeah, that's like just in like just seeing that guy coming down from safety while you're going for a ball is just terrifying to think of.
Yeah, I
Like,
couldn't imagine. Also, that was
yeah,
like early 2000s, so like that was kind of like that last era of dudes getting killed.
yeah.
So imagine that guy
That's a guy
crossing
that
the field at
like
you.
so personal comes to personal mind is like Bob Sanders playing safety where he's just
Yeah,
literally going for
yeah.
heads when
Like,
he goes to
bro,
hit
you're a
people.
linebacker. What are you doing
And
back there?
then yeah, and then you got twice his size Urlacher coming to do the same exact thing, but also literally could kill you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a picture I had as a screensaver forever. That was Urlacher hitting like Rogers, and his head was gone.
Yeah. For my two, this is where I put Mike Ditka
Yeah,
for a lot of the same reasons you did. Uh, just all time Bears legend. Like you
yeah,
said, there's just I mean everything that comes up about the Bears is usually if it's like a comedy skit or if it's some sort of like narrative about it, they're dressed up like Ditka coaching, like just
yeah,
all time.
yeah. Also, I mean, like, he played himself kind of in movies, and they're awesome.
Yeah,
Um, and if you just put a picture of him up there, everyone knows what team it is. You know what I mean? It's like you
yeah,
can. There's not a bunch of people that you can put up and know what team they represent, but and he was with other teams. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So he
yeah.
coached other teams.
It's hard to picture him in anything other than something Bears and
Yeah,
the old school jacket, Bears jacket. Like, yeah,
yeah. Yep. And just kind of again like Butkus is the personality of the Bears. Kind of rough around the edges, kind of
hmm
steak eating. Yeah, like
yeah,
the super fan skit. Um, my number one, of course, is Sweetness, Walter Payton. To me, the best there ever was, and honestly, like that's the one thing. Like, though, when I bring up arguments with any of the NFC North fans, is like running backs in the Hall of Fame and how many yards they had and years they played. So, I mean,
yeah,
that's why I mean he's right up there with the very few. There's like a handful of 5 or 6 running backs that are, have slowly gone down the list, but only because of the game's changing and the amount of time guys have played now. But Walter Payton, I think is my number one. Again, picture of him up there.
So
Everyone knows who it is.
so he lands at my number one as well. So
Yeah,
I actually left Urlacher off this list,
that's insane.
which
Because we talked
he,
about it, and I mean, we obviously are both fans, and it's hard to not have him.
yeah. I just think so. When it comes to Bears linebackers, there's just so freaking many of them
Yeah,
that to
that's
come to
true.
mind.
Yeah,
And Urlacher's like, if it was my personal, like my favorite players,
yeah,
Rushmore, I think he would be, if not one, two, on my list. But just as overall Bears, you think of the Bears, you put them on the Mount Rushmore. Walter Payton comes up to list, second to only Emmitt Smith on the career yards. Just and then Man of the Year, obviously you hear about him every year. So it's just
yeah,
hard
which is
to
insane. I
not
mean,
have
because
him.
I mean, Emmett Smith, if you look at that team and what they had, and so I mean, it's just in the years he played and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, uh, and Walter Payton kind of like as he got sick at the end of his career too. You know, like um, there was a lot of articles and stuff that I read that didn't they paint him in a bad light. So also it's kind of like to me, it's like he deserves to be up there and get all the recognition that he didn't get towards the end of his
hmm
life. Because he was one of the NFL's best. I mean, if you were
yeah.
going to make the NFL into like a logo like the NBA, that's who I would have like jumping, over. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be him.
Well, he was doing like it always seems like when I watch like some of his highlights and stuff, it's like he was doing modern moves back then. It's just cool to see,
Yeah.
and you can also run through guys, and obviously, but
And some of the players supposedly still go there. There's a hill, I guess, out in Arlington Heights that he used to go run. That is insane. That like people would
yeah,
like literally collapse on, and he just running it all day like he was, on flat ground.
yeah, crazy to yeah. I just can't imagine like, I mean, because yeah, it's
Especially
just
in an era
crazy
when
all the
everyone
stuff
was
that
like
he's
really,
accomplished. So yeah,
yeah. Especially in like a really physical era when people
yeah,
were trying to kill you. It's like
yeah.
concussions were
The game
fun
was
to
literally
give.
gladiators on a football field.
Right. So 2024 season expectations and Dark Horse Player of the Year. I kind of went back and forth on the schedule. I just tried to not be too optimistic, so I went 13-4. Then I kind of tried to narrow it down because 13-4 is 6 more wins. 10-7 is only 3 more wins than we had last year, I believe, and I think that's
Yeah,
more achievable. But also, we really kind of, I mean, quarterback changes a lot of things, and we've added several pieces to that offense. Defense, we didn't lose anything, and it was ranked really high at the end of the year. So yeah, as far as the record goes, I mean, we could go team by team, but the kind of ones that I went back and forth are the ones that are questionable. It's like who is Indianapolis going to be? Is Richardson going to be healthy? Are they going to be good? Of course, is Houston and Green Bay, or is Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud, are they going to have good sophomore campaigns, essentially as starters? That kind of played into the back and forth.
yeah.
Again, I think everyone's doubting this defense. That's what all the radio shows and stuff talk about. Our offense being, they're questionable, but
Yeah,
you don't have to do much if the other team's not scoring.
right. And I mean, we got a real chance to see kind of where our division is and where we kind of need to push too. Because I mean, it's all back ended too. It's crazy to see that we're not playing. I think the Packers are our first divisional game, and it's week 11.
Yep. Yeah.
That's crazy.
We get a lot of warm-up time out of division. And
Yeah,
we get an extra preseason game and an extra week of practice before the preseason game, which is obviously coming up here in a week or so.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's the other thing, because we're going to play the Texans twice. Obviously, the Hall of Fame game doesn't really matter. 'Cause
Yep.
it's not going to be – but it does kind of matter, right? You're getting tape on some of the guys. I mean, you're getting a feel for, what they try to accomplish or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's so that even feels like a bonus for us, is that we get to face them extra preseason game, and then we face them during the season.
yeah. And
'Cause
we're
that
ranked
typically doesn't
third
happen.
easiest schedule in 2020.
Yeah, which helps
2024.
as well. That
Yeah,
helps as
that's.
well.
I mean, like, it's hard not to be optimistic, but it's also, as a Bears fan, very easy to not be optimistic.
Well, and as an NFL fan, because if you look at, I mean, there's teams that just should be good. Like Green Bay should have been easily got through Green Bay in the playoffs. I mean, and they got
Hmm.
so I mean, there's a lot of parity. It just from year to
Yeah.
year, you don't know who's going to be good really.
Well, then you got Houston that jumps from fourth to first in their division just
Yeah,
because they get CJ Stroud.
and everyone, literally Carolina passed on him to get
Yeah.
Bryce Young. You know what I mean? So no
The
one
drop.
really saw that coming.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen a lot of things too that are like, well, we don't know if, I mean, Caleb Williams, I mean, he's definitely not going to have the year CJ Stroud was. If he has half the year CJ Stroud had last year, like,
Yeah. And again, it's kind of dependent on how many points the defense gives up. I mean, really, you don't
yeah,
even have to have that good of a year if your defense is only giving up a touchdown or so, you know?
yeah.
Which
So you
really,
have
that's the
10 and
difference in the
7
NFL.
officially.
It's like the difference is between like 20 and 15 points. You know, like everyone can
Yeah,
score like 15, 14 points, but 24 is like win you games for sure. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
the margin's not that big, really. And that was the other thing. Like the games we did lose. I mean, obviously there were some blowouts there at the beginning of the season, but we didn't really get beat.
No, I mean, I just looked up. I was just curious because I want to go back and go through some of the games last year.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a
And
break recording.
cool.
And yeah, so you never. So yeah, I guess you still got to mention your part of the what you think the record's gonna be, and then
Yeah,
we'll get into the next part of it.
yeah. So I personally think they will. I mean, I have 10 and 7. I see the biggest problems is I got it right here. Um, I mean, if CJ Stroud's the thing, like that's gonna be, he's gonna be good for a while, and so I've got them losing that one.
Yeah,
Indianapolis, I really don't know.
I honestly put us down for a loss at Houston that week
Yeah,
too. I have us winning Titans, lose, and then winning Indianapolis
yeah,
because I
and
just
I've
don't
got
know. And is their defense? I don't know. I mean, they're just
right.
question marks all over.
Really, I don't have. So let's see. Let me look at it really quick. So I mean, I have a splitting with the Packers just because it's the Packers and everything always seems to be
It
split in
isn't a
that game.
you typically we're not going to make a huge jump where you sweep them
Yeah,
1 year. Yeah,
I think we got whoever is at home is going to win that one.
that's basically what
Um,
I put down.
yeah, Lions is where I'm kind of like I think the Lions are. They didn't seem like they're going to go downhill by any means, so I think the Lions stay where they're at.
For sure.
Um, they've got a good wide receiver core that I mean Laporta freaking Jared Goff apparently loved him last year because
Yeah,
so I mean I think 10 and 7 is a pretty good. Yes, man. That's like you said. I mean, it's only 3 wins more than last year, and
I
we
think
kind of
that's a
figured it
good
out
year to
last
year
year.
progression.
Yeah, I mean,
Because let's
I
be
don't think
honest,
we're
like the whole Houston thing is kind of fluky for most upstart
right.
teams. New coach, new quarterback, kind of stuff. We honestly have more stability than that, but I think we're
Yeah,
also in more of a competitive division too.
right. I wonder where like I said, I don't. I wonder where the Packers land on because I think so. My biggest thing is I think we're going to land second or third in the division. I think Lions, as long as they don't massively screw it up,
Yeah,
have first place handled. And I think we split with the Packers and for second or third. And I think Vikings are taking a big fall with quarterback play
yeah. And honestly,
and
I
apparently
think
wide receivers.
I mean, this could be just wishful thinking, but I feel like Green Bay and Lions. I mean, I don't want to say it, but you're an injury away from, you know, the whole game plan being out the window for one. And there is just some drop off from year to year on some
Yeah,
teams with them, if you don't really kind of innovate new things, kind of what Andy Reid does, because everyone's got tape on you and they know. That's why a lot of quarterbacks' sophomore season isn't as good as their freshman because everyone now has tape on you.
yeah, you've been found out.
And that's
I
why
mean,
I'm a fan of Brock Purdy because it's like the second year was like the year where everyone knows who you are. and he
Yeah.
really didn't drop off.
No. No. I mean, yeah. Brock Purdy. Secondary conversation is to me. I was thinking about today earlier. Is like he's kind of like that Tom Brady-esque type player where he's like that game manager that's not overly sparky and trying to make the game about himself. He's surrounded by a good amount of players and can dump off when he needs to dump off and make the deep throws when he has to make the deep throws. But yeah, so that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I was thinking about that earlier today where it's like, dang, Brock Purdy is kind of just a great underrated quarterback where nobody knew about him.
Yeah,
I mean, Mr. Irrelevant when his draft. So
yeah. I mean, and I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, could I ever be confident that that guy's going to back to back win me? You know, I mean, and he's been
mhm.
there multiple, kind of knocking on the door or whatever. But I think so. I don't think it matters where he comes from, or to me, you know.
No, and the only reason they found that guy is because what two quarterbacks went down.
Yeah,
I
they
think.
got real lucky because
Yeah,
they kind of botched the whole Trey Lance thing by giving up so much to get him, and Brock Purdy bailed them out by being good.
yeah,
Yeah, and I don't hear of anything of Trey Lance being like not
yeah.
on Dak's footsteps or anything down.
Yeah.
And
Say he's Dak's backup, isn't he?
yeah, if he's even that, I think they had a
Yeah.
different guy between them.
Oh,
Cooper
Cooper
Rush or
Rush
something.
or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So I don't know, but that again, he just went there last year, so who knows?
yeah. And then
After
Jimmy G's a failed uh project for many teams now.
have you? Well, that's kind of I think Tom Brady is Tom Brady, but I think there's also people that have benefited from the Belichick system.
Oh yeah.
Matt Castle, if you remember that name,
Hmm.
him being another one because the fact that Garoppolo looked pretty good for in Brady's absence there for a year or two in New England. So he got the contract in 49ers, and they tinkered with him as much as they could,
Yeah,
and then figured out how to get him out of town as soon as they got Trey Lance, and
yeah,
then realized Trey Lance wasn't him and got lucky.
yeah. Wasn't him either. Yeah,
But it
yeah that was.
makes, I mean, it's kind of similar to what Caleb's coming into, what Brock Purdy
Hmm.
has. There's a lot of weapons. It makes your job a lot easier when you can throw
Yeah,
five different places, and they're probably going to catch it. You know what I mean?
and a lot of people have said this is backwards of what usually happens. It's number one quarterback coming into the worst team
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, because they
This
usually
year, it's
have the
number
first
one
pick, right?
quarterback coming. Yeah, yeah, number one
Um,
quarterback coming into actually a decent team. So
and we got last year's worst teams pick, right? So we weren't the worst team. So we've already
yeah,
had year to
yeah,
year growth. So I think
right.
definitely a better spot. So I guess that brings us to who would your dark horse player of the year be on the 10-7 Bears?
So I've got a 1 and 2, just because my one we've talked about this a little bit is not 100% a dark horse, but I think is kind of not talked about when it comes to the offense, and that's Cole Kmet.
Yeah,
Um, I think with the hype around the wide receivers is awesome. They're all going to be. I mean, it's hard to not think that they're not all going to be great. I mean, biggest problem is there's only one ball to go to somebody on the play. But with a rookie quarterback, you got to have a good tight end and
yeah,
to bail him out. And Cole Kmet is that. Obviously, we've seen it.
yeah.
Um,
Also on the
but I
blocking
think,
end, right? So I mean, you just have
yeah,
a sixth offensive lineman now if you need it.
yeah, yeah. And then so my second one is actually Jack Sanborn. I think this is the year that he actually steps into that third linebacker role. Um, I mean, he's kind of steadily climbed the last couple of years.
Yeah,
You saw his first year, he only had a few times you'd see him in a game. And then last year, you kind of saw him quite a bit. And then I think this year, he actually takes that leap and actually gets out there more.
yeah. I agree. I think if you look at the linebacking core too, there's some money wrapped up in it, and there's not much fall off when he's out there. So
No.
And he, to me, is kind of like that iconic image Chicago Bear linebacker. You know, flies around everywhere, just hitting everything. He's always
Yeah,
near the ball somehow. It's like
that
unbelievable.
gritty,
Yeah,
underrated guy that just
yeah.
needs to be fight for something.
From a Big Ten school, and and just kind of likes playing in the snow and doesn't wear long
Yeah,
sleeves, and that type of
yeah.
dude.
Throw some Vaseline on his arms and calls it
Yeah,
good.
right, right. I went through the whole list because it's like, man, you could say, I mean, dark horse is kind of subjective, right? Like you said, Cole
Yeah,
Kmet. I mean, is he a dark horse because he's so good and everyone knows how good he is? But again, he's now kind of your fourth option, third option, maybe, or even
yeah.
if you're looking at Swift, even maybe a fifth, sixth option. But yeah, he definitely is up there. So I went with a defensive player. I went with Tyreek Stevenson
Okay.
because if you look at the numbers last year, it's crazy. He was drafted in the 23 draft on round 2. Last year had
Hmm.
65 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions. I was like, is that career? But he only played 1 year. And that's tied for 4th in the league last year. And 16
Dang.
pass deflections, which was tied for 5th. And he's not even your best cornerback, right?
No, yeah. I mean, you got
Rookie
Jalen Johnson you
campaign,
talked about.
4 interceptions and 16 pass deflections. He again was around the ball. So again, on a defense that ranked very high and a bunch of other big kind of names on it.
Yeah,
And probably, I think you'll probably see another, from what I understand or hear, is another defensive end coming in. So even more pushing him down the line of people that you expect to play good, but
yeah,
especially Jalen Johnson on their side getting all the money. I think
yeah,
Tyreek Stevenson's going to have a breakout year. If that was his rookie campaign, you might see if there's not a drop off and he gets the time he had last year, I think double the interceptions. You know,
yeah,
and could be battling with Jalen for league lead in that category.
yeah.
So honestly, I just think that's people are sleeping on the secondary that we have, and that's one of Green Bay's weaknesses, which is nice. I think that bodes well for us, especially later in the season when you kind of wore through guys and cornerbacks are injured, and Jair Alexander has been tearing your locker room apart.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
It kind of reminds me of was Tim Jennings the other cornerback?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It kind of reminds
yeah,
me of
exactly.
that where Tillman is your giant name that everybody knows and Jennings is silently over there, but
Just as
starts
good
building his
almost,
name
right?
up.
He's
Yeah.
not forcing the fumbles and the peanut punch as much, but lockdown guy,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think honestly for Jalen to kind of do is what you have to have another guy that can cover the other side. Otherwise, they're just going to never pass the ball to your guy, right?
Right,
Um,
right. That's the biggest thing.
So I think that helps. And then you still have Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, and we just got Kevin Byard back there. So in a secondary with a bunch of names in it, I think he's going to be right there with the top ones.
Yeah. I had some other names I wanted to throw out to you too, just to kind of feel out kind of your feelings on them too. So, Rashawn Johnson,
Oh yeah,
the running back.
yeah,
Uh, a lot of people talk about, I mean, Swift obviously coming in,
right.
and then
And you still
Khalil
have
Herbert.
Herbert, right.
Yeah.
And
Johnson, to me last year, like, was sneakily good. Like,
for sure.
when he was
And
able to be
honestly,
there.
I think that's been his career because he backed up Bijan Robinson, I think, in Texas. So it was like
I think so. Yeah.
he whoever it was, there was a really good running back in front of him. So he's never been the guy, really, And
Yeah.
Swift, Herbert, and him all have different skill sets.
Yeah.
I see it anyway. You have like a ground and pound guy. He's more of kind of a scat back, and then Swift is almost your receiving back. Your
Yeah.
your screen pass guy. That sort of stuff.
Because I've actually seen a couple articles now that are like training camp battles is second place spot for running backs. And it's Herbert and Johnson to see
Yeah,
who's actually the secondary guy. I mean,
Right.
Swift, obviously, you just pay that money. He's going to be your number one guy. And
yeah.
he's
Well,
a great running back anyways.
exactly. That was one thing I bring up too about the Hard Knocks episode on Giants. It's cool to see everyone going after players that we got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just to know that they're on high on other guys' board, um, so it makes me
Oh,
feel confident about polls.
episode 3 too. They say the bear. They basically say the Bears screwed him out without saying it of losing Barkley.
Oh, really? Because
They
they took
say the
Swift.
Bears drove up the price.
I did hear that, and actually, when they were talking about, they're like, I did hear him saying that they're driving up
Yeah,
the price,
they're yeah
which is
driving up the
awesome because
price.
that's just polls
Yeah,
cooking. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I
and then
love
didn't
that.
even get him and went for Swift. And
Yeah.
it's almost like they tried getting him out of New York so he would go
So they
somewhere and then
could
they
get
could get
Swift,
yeah.
and yeah.
And
But
then
I don't
so
know. The
the other
Swift was very happy in Philly, even though that's like that's his hometown and stuff. It just didn't.
yeah
It seemed like we got him pretty easily,
yeah
And
yeah
they paid a lot for Saquon
yeah they did
in the
and
running back world, anyway, because no one's spending that
yeah
money, and they went 12
right
and a half, I think, or something.
yep.
Giants
I
were
also
smart
heard
in
a
that, to me.
crazy stat this morning that was just because it's funny is Denver still is paying 19% of their salary cap to Russell Wilson.
Insane.
Yeah, 19% is just crazy for a guy that's not on your team and was a failed project of 1 year.
But I mean, and it makes me question: is it the Russell Wilson relationship with Sean Payton was so bad? Do whatever you can to get him out of there, or was he just not good for your franchise? Because
Yeah,
84 million is a lot to pay a dude to not be there.
but I've heard that he's not like the greatest like
Team guy.
people don't necessarily love him. Like it's not that he's like causing problems,
Yeah,
but it's just like he's just not anybody's real friend.
I don't know why, but the guy just annoys the hell out of me. I have no
Yeah,
reason to even say that. I just see him and I'm like, gee, the whole "let's ride" and all the
yeah.
it just everything he does is just cringy to me. But that's just my personal opinion. I have no reason to even say that. I'm, full disclaimer.
My
But yeah, Russell's
my
like one of
other
those guys.
my other guy I wanted to throw out there for you was Kevin Byard,
Yeah,
the safety for not. I don't really see him as a dark horse because I guess he didn't have a great year last year, but he's a well-known guy in the league at this point. I mean,
yeah, and look at the. I mean, no offense, the Titans weren't on top of their game last year. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's where he came from, right? Tennessee, I
yeah,
believe. I will say that, yeah, I think honestly, just from him to Eddie Jackson, I think he's a more violent, physical, kind of similar player, almost,
yeah,
as far as
and
how he
so
plays.
overly smart too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's great for the locker room. Of being
Watching
able to
his
train
highlights,
guys
though, it
up.
just didn't seem like there was times, and I love Eddie Jackson because I'm an Alabama fan and he's an Alabama guy, but there was times where it looked like he did not want to take the hit or make the hit. And
Yeah,
of course, I'm only watching highlights of Byard, but I will say I've not seen that. It looks like he's one of those guys that's like looking for that, and even the opportunity to take some miles off of your
yeah.
your wheels. Yeah. So, that brings us to the next segment, which is the players that you have forgot about. There's honestly, you could go. We're obviously talking about Bears players, but there's a million players in general. You can just go.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was watching TikTok today, and there's a comedian that literally says, "Me and my buddies just sit in a room, and somebody says a name, and then somebody says the college he went to and the teams he played on." It's like we just do that for 7 hours. And I'm like, yeah, basically that's how my mind is all day. It's like, oh man, I forgot
Yeah,
about that guy.
and it's crazy too because that guy's probably somebody's favorite player ever.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I watched because Hester got in the Hall of Fame, watching Hester highlights, and then you see other players on the field. It's like, oh my gosh, that's I remember that guy, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Not really. So whenever I see a Hester comparison and stuff, I always am reminded of Cribbs. I
yeah,
always forget about Josh Cribbs.
yeah.
But
Oh
he
yeah,
was like a return specialist then.
yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
He was kind of him before Hester was, and Hester just took
Yeah.
it to another level.
Yes. So you wanted to drop yours first? You want me to drop mine first?
What's that? You go ahead. You go ahead and drop yours. Yeah.
Musin Muhammad. Uh, we picked. He was. Let's see, we picked him up in '05 from the Panthers because they didn't want to re-sign him. I think is what it ended up being, or they couldn't come up with a amount to get together with, and then he was one of the. He was other than Hester's touchdown in that '06 Super Bowl. He was the other touchdown
Yeah. I forgot
on like
about
a
that.
slant, I think.
Yeah. That's crazy and cool. That's a good
Yeah,
one. I love the reminiscing, and honestly, my guy is Earl Bennett. And I look at the numbers, and they are not great. He had 1 year with 700 yards, and that was his best year. But that was my
yeah.
guy. 08 to
I loved Earl
13.
Bennett.
I saw a post, and it said, there's something special between a boy and a mediocre wide receiver that no one else remembers. And it's true. Earl Bennett, I don't know. I felt like the numbers were way better than they actually were in my mind until I looked
Yeah,
it up. But it's just seeing a picture of him, I'm like, heck yeah, Earl Bennett, man.
yeah. My always go to my mediocre wide receiver is Marvin McNutt from Iowa. Had a like 2 year career, I think, with
Did he?
Philadelphia. Yeah. Didn't ever do anything but like was a game changer for the Hawkeyes
And
with
you were
Ricky
probably
Stanzi.
certain he was going to be
Oh yeah.
breakout star
Yeah.
of the league,
Next thing I know, he's the coach of a high school team in
Yeah.
Cedar Rapids
Yeah.
and was their arena football team coach
Shoot,
in
and he's
Cedar
actually,
Rapids.
you can actually meet him and hang out with him now.
I
It's
I worked at Hy-Vee and I bagged his groceries
You're like,
often.
awesome. That actually, brings you full circle. That's cool.
Yeah, it's like what the hell? Like,
Yeah,
this is,
I mean, but again, like as far as players you forgot about, there's a million of them. And I mean, just the
oh
Bears.
yeah,
I was on a website just checking out old rosters and every name. Hunter Hillemeyer and Chris Harris and all
I
these.
got
teams.
down to find mine. I got down a Reddit dark hole and was like, oh my god, what? I forgot
Yeah.
about all of these
Yeah.
players.
And I mean, you think
Like,
of
it's
players too, and it
crazy.
leads you to the next player and the next player and this
Yeah.
coach, and that coach went to this college and he coached this guy, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
And yeah, it brings it full circle. So we August 14th is when we are going to training camp, and there's obviously a ton of new stuff to see. But who are you most excited to see, or what are you most excited to see at training camp?
so I got some weird ones here. So one, Tory Taylor.
Yeah, yeah.
Being an Iowa guy, I mean,
Yeah, I was going to say
punting
that's
is winning.
it's a little premature because we haven't told our college teams, but Ryan is an Iowa guy, so that makes sense. Also, I mean, he's going to be kind of Hester-esque in his game-changing ability,
Yeah, I mean, he can flip a field.
and I don't think people
Uh,
realize how important that is. I'm told several people this over since the Rams won their Super Bowls. They had Hecker that year, and if you look at their average field position of the opposing team, that's part of how they were so good that year. Everyone had
Eh.
to march the whole field.
Tory Taylor's got the Pat McAfee stamp too. I mean,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
more can you ask?
yeah, yeah.
A little bit more serious though. Couple I have are our O line, just because they got a lot of crap last year. I feel for if you dug more, and I know me and you have kind of had this conversation. The more you dig into it, the more you kind of see. Well, Justin Fields held the ball a long time for them to be
Yeah,
holding up, and I mean, yes, they had their problems. Don't get me wrong, but you could see a lot of it too. That these guys are, I mean, they have to do a lot of work to get
yeah.
any sort of.
I think a lot of the problem for any offensive line is continuity, and these guys were all kind of new coming into it together, and they got better. I felt like,
Yeah,
and Fields got better too. I mean, like you have to get rid of the ball, even if there's nothing
Yeah.
there. The ball has to be gone.
and
At least save your guys. That
Yeah.
work. So
Yeah.
by the end of the game, you're just gassed. There's a way we couldn't do nothing in the fourth quarter.
yeah, and then I've also got a John Jackson. I talked to you a little bit about this
Yeah.
before this, but he actually played with Caleb Williams in college for a year or two at USC um, before he transferred out to I don't know where he ended. I think he went to like Nevada or something. But even if there's any like small coincidency there, like he could be a kind of rising wide
Yeah.
receiver nobody really even
A
saw
safety
coming.
blanket for Caleb, maybe,
Yeah,
someone he's
yeah.
familiar with. I mean, that has to matter. You know what I mean? Look at Burrows and Jamar Chase. You know what I mean?
I can only imagine that's the only reason because I'm pretty sure he was a free agent, rookie free agent signing.
Yeah.
So I gotta imagine that's got to be the only sort of reason they went out of
Yeah,
their
and
way
maybe
after
Caleb
picking
was
up.
like, hey, this dude's
Yeah,
not drafted. Let's grab him. I feel
yeah,
comfortable with this guy. Yeah. I think that's a great kind of dark horse storyline, really. Yeah,
yeah.
it could be. You know, of course, I think for me, seeing the offense is going to be cool because it's got the new Ferraris, um,
Mhm.
the Rome and Caleb, of course, Keenan, and watching all the outtakes from the early practices with Keenan and DJ Moore, kind of the chemistry already developing there. But for me, it's the whole defense. I want to see these guys in action up close, and of course
Yeah,
Jalen Johnson. That's one thing I will mention because I mentioned Jalen Johnson is just getting him signed and all that. It just feels good that we're not the ones having to figure all this out and going back and forth, especially after watching Hard Knocks and watching them lose Saquon and how kind of people get turned off because we did franchise tag him, and
hmm
when you get franchised, every player but I think T Higgins this year that franchise got a long term contract.
hmm
So you're pretty much gone if you get franchised, and you know, and they don't sign you to a long term contract. So seeing that we got that done with him and seeing him out there, I think that'll be cool. I'm honestly excited about the defense. I'm excited about seeing all of it, but specifically the defense and
yeah,
Jalen Johnson up close, Montez Sweat. I'd like to see that defensive line, and how they look. Because again, we were high ranked defense, so it's not shouldn't be really easy on the offense,
hmm
which obviously should make them better. So yeah, I definitely think it's going to be exciting either way because there's a bunch of new pieces, and
yeah,
as Bears fans, we feel like we always win the off season.
yeah. I'm curious to see what we will get to see. Like that's
Yeah.
exciting because I'm obviously they're not going to show us the house. I mean, they're not going to go through everything, but
Do
it'll
you
be interesting to see
think that
what we get.
opposing teams have people sneak in there like a fan like we are?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they've got this guy's brother is a Bears fan anyway, so he's going there. So we asked him what like. There's got to be
Hey, watch
some
these
sort
three
of stuff
things.
going
Where
on.
they lining this dude up at, or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wondered that. I'm like, is that competitive or petty? I don't know. Maybe I guess you look for an edge no matter
I
what.
mean,
Um, but
Bill
like you said,
Belichick's
those
had a league, so I don't really know.
there's a reason why they make those public, right? They know which ones are
Yeah,
public, and they know who's kind of what to show and what not. I mean, let's be honest.
and
There's
it's
a
just
bunch
gonna
of
be
different versions of NFL offenses and defenses, but they all are trying to do the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
So that brings us to our final segment.
yeah,
Our favorite college teams, which I think kind of alludes to the people we are and the people we follow when, maybe the Bears aren't doing great and aren't exciting.
yeah,
That that gives us somebody to root for, So go for it.
yeah. I mean, and both of us I feel like have had. I mean, obviously you being a Bama fan is obviously a little bit more exciting than mine,
Yeah,
but
as of
as
recently,
of
but
recent, like we've both had good Saturdays
yeah,
for the most part. Mine for just defense, but not a whole lot of offense. But being an Iowa Hawkeye fan, I mean, I grew up 10 minutes away from Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. I mean, it's probably like 20 minutes, but we go to me and a couple buddies always try and get 4 mini game package tickets where we go to 3 games or so, or at least a game a year. But I just honestly, there's something about college football that's just crazy. That's
Yeah.
just always so fun to be at.
And I
I've
mean,
been
they
to, but
always have awesome traditions. Obviously, Iowa has the wave, which is cool.
yep,
But I mean, every college really has something.
yeah,
Um, it is different. It is like you can kind of feel it in the air.
yeah,
Like you said, I'm an Alabama fan, and down south, I mean, like Iowa, they don't have a professional sports team, so that's it, right? You
mm,
kind of choose your college team and you ride with them. And of course, I'm an Alabama fan, so my grandfather's from Alabama, so that's I before I even knew what sports was, I was wearing Bama shirts and stuff. And it has been easy to be a Bama fan as of recently, but I'm 44 years old, so there was definitely a downtime
yeah.
between in between championships. But there, I love watching college because it's fun, and I loved always Alabama's because they don't put the players' names. It's just stripped down. It was just kind of
Yeah.
like we're here to play football, and that's it.
So I always loved I always got the pink locker rooms, getting teams' heads and stuff.
Yeah,
Actually, the one funny story I know of recently is they got Jim Harbaugh's head really bad. He went in and postered up the entire locker room with Michigan stuff. It's like he's like, yeah, we're not gonna let it get to us. Like you already did. You already you lost the mental game. You had to go in there and you had to change everything so it didn't get in your head. Like it's already in your head. You're thinking about it.
yeah,
Like to
yeah,
me, like that says to like you lost that game already
for sure,
in your head, and they
for
lost
sure.
that game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like every little edge matters. Especially in college
Yeah,
football because you see it all the time. There's so many upsets. It's just there's one guy can have a great game and actually make a huge difference in college
yeah.
versus NFL because it's just like kind of all the best players at their positions.
And
Um,
home field advantage is so crazy in college.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the like yeah, like NFL. I've never been to a Bears game, and that's always been a dream to go. We just never ended up going with my fam. Like my family never went. But I mean, Hawkeye games. It's like that was our professional sport there. Obviously, like you said,
yeah,
it's just the feeling that you get there is just so crazy.
right. Yeah, I mean, just I've been to several college stadiums during games. Not actually been in, but have been around them because of events and stuff I was doing for companies I was working for. And I mean, like when they talk about the house is rocking, like that's what it is. You can feel the ground shaking
Yeah,
from people, all kind of bouncing in unison, and some of the intros for some of these college teams coming in is like insane. It gets me ready to run through a wall, and
yeah.
it's like I don't even like that team. It's like
Yeah. Well,
insane.
like Clemson's parade around the stadium first, and then
Yeah,
they run down the giant
yeah,
hill. Iowa's got Back in Black, and then they got the
yeah,
Swarm coming through, and yeah, and even like the little like Mr. Brightside at college
yeah.
stadiums, like things like that, like
It's
just
funny because
random
now, like the
songs.
songs that I listened to when I was young are now like those songs that are like stadium
Yeah,
songs, like the White Stripes, the Seven Nation Army,
yeah,
and
Seven Nation
yeah,
Army, like that's one of the craziest songs in College
yeah,
Stadium,
yeah.
and
When you get the
it's
whole house
across
jumping,
every yeah.
Um, so I mean, it honestly makes more sense for you to be a Hawkeyes fan than it does for me to be a Bama. I grew up locally here to the Quad Cities, and kind of, I mean, I did support Illinois at some points because everybody where I grew up did, but they've never really been very
Yeah.
competitive in
Well, and it's not to
hit and
say
miss
that. I
years
mean,
here and there, with sports, but not
yeah.
very.
Well, like you said, your grandpa was lived in Alabama, was an Alabama fan. Like,
Yeah.
if my grandpa and dad lived somewhere else and moved here, but were fans of a different team, that's what I ended up watching
Well,
every
family
Saturday.
vacations were to Alabama, and saying "Roll Tide" down there is like saying hello. It's like everyone just
Yeah,
roll Tide. So
yeah,
yeah, so that was part of
yeah,
the. But again, because they're good now, I have to like show people pictures of me when I was like 5 wearing the shirt.
yeah.
Like, dude,
Which is
I
sad. Like,
actually am a fan. Um,
yeah,
you know, but it has been easier, especially
yeah.
uh,
That's
now that
what.
the college playoff is expanding.
Yeah, and it was crazy too. So when I met Julie and we started dating originally, uh, like she'd go, like, wondering why like college sports was so big when she would come to Cedar Rapids and stuff. and like wouldn't believe that it was huge. Like, but she'd go to then we lived in North Liberty, which is 5 minutes away from Iowa City.
Yeah.
And I'd be watching the football games, and she'd go grocery shop because nobody's in the store.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nobody in the streets, especially like you get like a Cyhawk game in Iowa.
It's funny because most people that don't live in a college town, that is just a college town, don't realize that, because I lived in San Diego for many years, and I'm like, you go to Iowa City, you go to some of these towns, they are closed, and it'll say college football and come back tomorrow, Saturdays is for college football. So totally understand that. So that basically wraps it. Next week we'll be talking about the Hall of Fame game, most hated opposing player, and I'm going to make Ryan pick a secondary team to root for in case the Bears blow it all and we have to root for somebody else. I'm personally a secondary Chargers fan because I lived in San Diego for 10 years. But Ryan has no second team, so
my secondary
if he picks an NFC North team, I'm gonna
Saturday.
Special thanks to Lindsay O'Brien and Julie Burheit for giving us the time to do this and letting us take a little time away from our families to talk about our favorite football team. Which is obviously not high on the priority list at family time, but it is important to us, and I feel like it's an important year. It'd be nice to say, we started the podcast at the beginning of Caleb's career, so when he's retiring 20 years from now with his 6 rings, we can be at the ceremony.
Yeah. Part of Carpool Sports.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're going to have a huge podcast company called Carpool Sports right now. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to us. Follow us on all the social medias, Barely Maintained at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you got. We look forward to you listening to us next week with episode 2. We'll see you then.